All right.
Welcome
Hello.
everybody to the Inventors Association of Arizona's presentation. We have on our line that's in the background is Jonna, who will give you some information on what you need to do if you have questions. Jonna?
Hello. I am with the Center for Entrepreneurial Innovation, and we just wanted to let you know that since there are so many attendees, you will be on mute for the whole presentation. But there is, if you look at your GoToWebinar control panel, there is an option to type in your questions. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, please type them there, and Laura and Andrea will address them at certain times during the meeting. And I think that's it. So
Okay. Thank you, Jonna. And for those of you that are new to our organization or just tuning in for the first time, my name is Laura Myers. I'm the Executive Director of the Inventors Association of Arizona. This is actually the first time we've done a webinar, because usually our open door meetings, which is what we have the first Wednesday of every month, usually they are in person, but as we all know, our world has changed. So as we go through this, we're kind of learning, how to do this too. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time if there's any glitches, but we're inventors, huh? We can work through this kind of stuff, right? Okay, so welcome to our webinar. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our organization very, very quickly, and then we will get to our speaker for the night. And she's very exciting. I am really looking forward to Andrea talking. But let me tell you just a little bit about the Inventors Association. We actually started our organization about 20 years ago, and now we've grown into, it was just a very small few people helping each other. Now we've grown into a full, thriving 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Our goal, our mission is to educate, support, and provide a centralized source of information for new inventors. All of us have been in that situation where we're like, oh, we have a great idea, now what? And that's what we're all about. And when I say that we're a nonprofit, I really mean it. We really are a nonprofit. We have a volunteer board of directors, and they're absolutely awesome. And they donate their time to keep this organization strong and bring value to the members. I can't say enough about the board of directors. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to pull all this together. So people donate their time. That's who we are. We're not here to make money, off of any inventors at all. We're here to help. And for the most part, we are inventors helping inventors for no personal gain, for each other. That really provides kind of a strong sense of camaraderie and synergy with all of our members. We do not want any percentage of your product or your profit or any part of your business. That's for product development companies. That's not us. We hold 2 meetings per month. First Wednesday of every month is a meeting like this, educational with a keynote speaker. It's a very good source of information for you, and it is open to the public, which I will emphasize it at this point. Do not put any personal information up on the questions board. This is public disclosure. So if you ask any specific questions, which actually kind of reveals your product, that actually means you have just publicly disclosed your product. And that is not what you want to do at this point. This is an educational for you to take in the information and ask questions. On the 3rd Wednesday of every month, we do have our members only meeting, and that's like a think tank. Every person in that think tank that is a member, and they can't get in the door without being a member. They do have a signed NDA on file. We have an application. We do a limited background check. So everybody feels very comfortable with everybody in the room, because that is a time that we share our products and help each other. Confidentiality is very strongly enforced and very strongly respected. So if you want to learn more about us, you can go to the Inventors Association of Arizona. And you can contact me. My email is at the bottom of the screen there. So zxdir@azinventors.org. I interact with a lot of people all the time, so please feel free to email me with any questions, and I'll help give you some direction. Okay, and now without further ado, I'd like to introduce our topic and our speaker for tonight. Our goal actually tonight is to learn the benefits of public relations in developing brand awareness for your inventions. So, you know, we all know that public relations strategies, and it needs to be strategic. That's why you need a professional like helping you with this. And that's all very, very important. And the need is quite obvious if you plan to attract investors and ultimately bring your product to market yourself. But some of you may be thinking, well, what's the importance of public relations to me when I plan to license my product? Won't the licensee handle all of that? Well, you know, once your product is licensed, the licensee may handle public relations and advertising. It may be Andrea that they interact with. But until you have a license contract, until you actually have that signed, sealed, and delivered, you still proceed as if you're bringing it to market yourself in many respects. So once you have, your idea, you're protected, and you start revealing that, and you get a lot of attention around that and get sales or whatever, you are now much more valuable and have much better negotiating power if your product is already selling or already out and being promoted when you're negotiating a licensing contract. So this whole educational session is both for people that intend to bring their product to market themselves and for people that want to license their product. And all of this will become more clear as we learn from our speaker tonight, Andrea Pass. Now, Andrea has been in the field of public relations for over 30 years, and her experience spans categories such as consumer products, lifestyle, B2B, education, authors, nonprofit, actually like any category you can think of. She's represented clients including 4Ocean, Cabinet Caddy, Go Hang It, Peel Away Labs, My Pillow, Ronco, Wolfgang Puck's products, and many more than we have time to name here. So, we're with a top-level professional here tonight, and very lucky that she's taken her time out and stayed up really late. If she's on the East Coast, she stayed up really late to present to us. Now, we all know that too, when you're in a field for a while, any kind of like recognition is very important, because you want to be with kind of the best of the best, right? When we hire somebody. And what I like, the reason why I say that is Andrea has a lot of awards and distinctions, and like leading woman entrepreneur, top 25 brand builder for 2018. She serves on the board of directors of the United Inventors Association, whom we all know. And she also was named as Direct Response Marketing Association Member of the Year finalist. So again, I could keep going with all the recognitions that she's received in the field of public relations. But in the interest of time, I'd like to go ahead and open the floor to Andrea. Let me, if you guys don't mind, let me escape for a second, turn off my webcam. So, and bring Andrea up here, and it should only take a second. And there we go. Okay, Andrea, can you see everything okay?
I can. Thank you, Laura, and thank you everybody from the Inventors Association of Arizona for joining me tonight to talk about the value of public relations in an inventor's marketing mix. Public relations is often the long forgotten stepchild of the communications process. You'll think about marketing, you'll think about advertising, but you won't think about public relations. So tonight we're going to have that conversation about what is public relations, why do I need it, and when in the invention process does it come into the picture. So without further ado, Laura, if we could move to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about consuming media. According to Nielsen, we spend 11 hours a day, 11, listening, watching, reading, and interacting with media. So that means you're reading your morning newspaper. You might be reading a magazine. You're watching a TV show. You're listening to the radio or a podcast. You're reading a blog. You're watching a video content on Facebook. You're even on a Zoom meeting, or you're reading articles that people posted on their social media pages. So the bottom line is all day long, people are consuming media. And think about it. What is in that media that is being consumed? Who's being quoted? So we're going to take hard news out of the picture for right now, because we are not talking about hard news categories unless your invention relates to hard news, relates to a product that might be something that can help in the fight against COVID-19, or if your product is a product that helps with homeschooling children or entertainment or things like that. So those are hard news categories, so we can work your invention into hard news, but there are many, many feature opportunities to have your product reviewed, a story about you as an inventor, and things that fit into that. So the bottom line is, how are you being included in the media in editorial content? And I think the important thing to note is editorial content counts as third-party editorial endorsement. So if they're talking about your competitors, you want to make sure they're talking about you and your product. Let's go to the next slide. So why does this increase brand value? Because of the fact that it is an editorial interview, an editorial product review, a quote from you on a topic, that's considered non-biased reporting. And therefore, that gives you a higher recognition. When these things happen, and when you have a review of your product, or you're quoted on how you might be handling quarantine as an inventor, or how you've gone to a convention and what you benefited from at that convention, etc., that can be used as evergreen coverage. So when those things happen and someone reviews your product, you can put that review on your website. You can put that review on your social media pages. In fact, you can repost that weeks later because it's evergreen and no one is looking at the date of that particular review or article. So if it doesn't pertain to breaking news or a specific time of the year, and we're not talking about Earth Day or Mother's Day in October, other things you can post whatever. So repost. So one of the things that I like to bring up when I'm working with my public relations clients is plan out your year. Right now, believe it or not, June 1 starts holiday gift giving time. Now, I know that you're in Arizona and it's warm, it's hot, and you're not thinking about Christmas and Hanukkah season, but guess what? Long lead glossy magazines begin in June and July to look at new products and see what they're going to include in those November issues that have holiday gift guides. When it comes to short lead media, blogs, newspapers, TV, radio, they begin for the holidays in August. So you can't plan something a few weeks in advance. You have to plan your public relations goals months in advance. So I'm busy now finishing up pitching for Father's Day in June, even though Mother's Day still isn't here yet. I'm already talking about some things for back to school, even though school isn't concluded yet for the people who are being schooled at home now across our country. But it's important that you think of these things and how they fit into your product. If you have a product that donates back to a breast cancer awareness charity. Breast Cancer Awareness Month is in October. We need to start talking about that in June, July. Back to school, you talk about now. Summertime, if you had a swim product, we would begin discussing that in October, November for summer season the following year. So all of these things fit into what is your product, what is your invention, and what is your story. So one example that I'd like to give is I work with a client named Circadian Optics, an inventor out of Minnesota, who created a lamp to help balance your circadian rhythm. And this, of course, happens when it's darker, usually in the winter months when you can't get sunlight and vitamin D in your system. Circadian rhythm goes off whack. You may not get the right amount of sleep. Her product was key for that November to March period of time when the clocks have changed for a majority of the country and people weren't getting the right light. So we had to balance her story to be during the time of the year where people in the Northeast and in the middle of the country and in the Northwest had less sunlight, less daytime. So we needed to plan that in advance of getting the press out there and talking to the media about those topics. So think about your product. And is your product year-round? That's great, but how can we tie it in with certain times of the years for story angles? And think about how you plan out your year and your communications, including public relations. Let's move on to the next slide. And there is so much media to be had. And really, I threw this slide together just to show you that everything fits in. Whether you're doing a story that's going to go nationally on Associated Press, or you're doing your local business publication, or you're doing a publication that might be so targeted, like I put up here, Taekwondo Life. They do all of these different interviews and feature it in their magazine. But you may not have thought, oh, how could my health and wellness product fit into Taekwondo because it's not a Taekwondo product? Well, your health and wellness product could fit in because people who practice Taekwondo do tend to try to lead a healthy life, and they tend to look at other items like healthy eating if you have a cookware product. They might also have pets because they like to be outdoors if you had a pet product. So make sure that you're not looking at your product narrow-mindedly. Look at your product and the press that you can get broadly. So you could look at ways to get your product reviewed and included in a variety of media that a public relations practitioner who has an expertise will be able to do on your behalf. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is key information because, as I mentioned at the beginning, public relations is the most misunderstood of those communication categories. And I found when I launched Andrea Path's Public Relations a few years ago, so many people would talk to me and say, oh, okay, how can you advertise this? And I had to keep saying, I don't do advertising. I'm a public relations professional. And oh, you write articles. No, I don't write articles. I get my clients covered by the press. So let's talk a little bit about the difference, because I think that this slide should give you a better understanding of the difference. And as you're working out your annual budgets, once you are ready to partake in a public relations campaign or an advertising campaign, these are the things that you'll see the difference about. Advertising is paid. You pay for an ad to show up, you've designed that ad, and that ad shows up in that publication on that page on that day. It's paid, not earned. Public relations is earned coverage, editorial earned coverage that you are not, for the most part, paying for. Advertising builds exposure. A publication can tell you that their circulation is a certain number, or a TV show has an estimated viewership, They can't guarantee you who's looking or reading at that moment. The difference in public relations is, yes, it builds exposure, but more importantly, it builds trust. Because if someone is doing a review on your invention, on your product, that review again becomes third-party editorial endorsement that you have not paid for. So it's building trust for your brand and for your product. You know, in advertising, we all see ads and we're kind of skeptical about that ad. But again, in public relations, validation by editorial content. Public relations has no guarantees. A public relations practitioner such as myself must persuade the media to interview you, to cover your product, to include your product in a gift guide or in a going down the table, the best gadgets for your 4th of July barbecue or what have you. So it's a different persuasion versus a guarantee passing dollars across the table. And in advertising, you have creative control, but in public relations, you don't. And here's a key thing. Should you work with a public relations professional, you want to work with someone who has great relationships with the media because they control that final version. And I'll tell you, over my years working with inventors and with consumer products and gadgets, I've had a number of times where reporters or bloggers have actually said to me, Andrea, the product didn't work. I'm not going to give it a good review. To which I'm able to say, can you pull the review then? And because of their relationship with me and because of the fact that they know I'm going to then bring them additional products to review, they'll pull that down and in turn, my clients won't get the negative review. So sometimes that happens because a product was sent, something may not work right, or there are some reviewers that insist on purchasing the product themselves. So it just happens that a product sometimes doesn't work. But in PR, we're making sure that it's a positive review for the most part for your product. And while ads in advertising are visual, public relations uses words. And the words are what builds the trust. Advertising is more expensive. When you're taking out an ad, it could be hundreds or thousands of dollars on a one-shot deal. Public relations works on a monthly retainer basis, and public relations firms such as mine work with usually a minimum of a 6-month program because it takes time to build that up. For what you pay for one ad in a glossy magazine, you can probably hire someone to do public relations for the good bulk of a year. So it works differently. Advertising says, buy this product. Public relations says, this is a good product, an important product, a product that you need because of the benefits. So that's where there's a difference between the two. And that's what's important for you to understand as you're thinking about public relations for your invention. So I'm hoping that this might clear up any questions that you might have. And you know, if you do have a question, please make sure you are using that question tab on the side, and Laura will see those questions and share those with me so that I can answer any questions you might have during this webinar about public relations and in this particular case, what's the difference? So Laura, are there any questions that I need to respond to before we move on?
Not at present.
Okay, we can always go back to it, but if you are watching, please feel free to ask your questions in the question tab because I don't want to miss any opportunity to help you get a better understanding of the value of public relations. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, I've worked with the inventor community now for probably over 15 years. As Laura mentioned, I'm on the board of directors of the United Inventor Association. I have held inventor pitchathons for a variety of clients in the direct response television or as seen on TV category. I've sat on committees. I currently chair the Workshop Council for the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, and that was previously called Response Expo, where many inventors went. I am constantly at the houseware show that changed names. It's now called Inspired Home, where many inventors exhibit. I'm at the hardware show where inventors exhibit. Don't exhibit or do public relations without a patent or provisional patent. Don't share your story with the press, because the chances of someone stealing your idea, you don't have protection then. So I implore you as inventors, don't tell your story to anyone until you have that patent or provisional patent. And if you're going to exhibit at trade shows, which the United Inventors Associations has inventor areas at the hardware show, at the annual PGA show, and many other trade shows that hopefully will be able to come back into being, in the not too distant future. You don't want to show the intricate details of your invention to people, anyone, until you have that patent or provisional patent. So please protect yourself. And I'm sure the Inventors Association of Arizona has tips and ways to assist you. The United Inventors Association is a free organization that everyone who's listening today should join. Just go on uiausa.org and join. And there are webinars, lectures, forms, articles that you can learn more about that process. But please, please, please have your patent or provisional patent before you even think about public relations outreach. You're not ready for public relations unless you have a finished product. You need to have inventory of the product. And I know many people ask me in the inventor world, but I want to do a Kickstarter campaign. Let's do public relations to get press so that I have my Kickstarter campaign. My recommendations for years in this industry and years working with inventors is do your Kickstarter campaign, but don't do publicity in the press surrounding it. The press does not cover Kickstarter campaigns anymore. Excuse me. And, again, until you have that patent and until you have something to share with the press, someone's not reviewing your product. Excuse me. So I want to make sure that you're prepared for that. Excuse me, I'm going to have some more water. Getting a tickle late at night here on the East Coast for those of you who are watching. I'm in New Jersey, where it is in the 40s. The weather is crazy for May. The other thing that I recommend is have a working website. Again, after you have your patent, after you have a finished product and you have inventory, have a working website and see if consumers can purchase from your website. That's important because how are they going to get the product? True, you're hoping that it's licensed by maybe an as seen on TV company, or it's available on HSN, or Home Depot picks up your product, or Target picks up your product. But until such a time that happens, make sure you're growing awareness so you're showing that potential retailer or buyer that there's already interest in your product, what your product does, how it solves a common problem, how it reaches a mass audience or a targeted audience, how you're trying to finagle the right price point for the product. So these are important before you even start your public relations outreach. Let's go to the next slide. And is it already available at retail? So if you have some local stores that are carrying your product, that helps get local press. So if you have a local mom and pop store in Arizona, wherever you live, Tucson, Scottsdale, we can hit that press in that market. And again, That is a great thing to do because that will increase recognition starting with local media. Set up social media pages and post consistently to increase your audience engagement. When a person like me goes out and gets press coverage for an inventor and their invention, in turn, I give those links to my client, the inventor, and they make sure either they or their social media person posts it, tagging the media outlet. It increases and it snowballs, and it is growing awareness of your product. So it's very important. And it's interesting because recently, and I'm not a social media guru, but someone said to me, oh, Instagram is the only way to go. Instagram is reaching a certain demographic. Facebook reaches another demographic. Twitter, kind of in the middle. So why not do all of them? Because if you're posting, just post and you can post on all of them. So I wouldn't discount one or another based on demographic and reach. So if you're doing social media, you may as well do them all. You need good product photography. It's important that you have product photography of your product in the box, a product next to your box or packaging, and lifestyle images. Someone actually using the product. So it's a product for a dog. Someone is walking the dog and the dog is drinking out of that bowl. If you have a product for the kitchen, you're showing food around that product and how the product is being used in the kitchen. Those images are important to be able to get the message out to the press because they're saying to me, send me a product, but send me photography. So that's important that you take care of having good photography. Again, know who your buyer is and target that demographic. In public relations, there could be anyone from the home world business to home furnishing news, to hardware retailer, to beauty publications, fitness, lifestyle, baby, parenting. I mean, it's the gamut of who that demographic is, who's reading what. And one of the things I always bring up, and I don't know about you, but I read that throwaway newspaper that's on my driveway every week, that little local hometown paper, because I want to know what's going on in my hometown. So even though I'm a public relations professional, I want to read all of these other things too. So I'll be reading Inc. and Entrepreneur and the Wall Street Journal, but I'm reading my daily newspaper here in North Jersey. I'm reading women's lifestyle magazines because I enjoy that. And I'm also reading travel magazines because that's a hobby of mine. I love to travel. So remember that we all wear different hats. And in public relations, we can get the word out about your product and invention through a variety of different media demographic categories. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, now it's time to talk about that interview. So Andrea Past Public Relations has arranged for you to be able to comment. So when appropriate, commenting on breaking news. Just today, I had 3 of my clients write me a comment on how to help small businesses during these tough economic times. So you might say, wait, but that doesn't mean they're going to buy my product. No, not necessarily. But what it means is you're in the mix. You got to be in it. If you're not in the mix with reporters, they're not necessarily going to remember you at the time when you're going to want that story about your product. By helping a reporter out with things that may be kind of zigging and zagging off of your topic a little bit, that is an excellent way to get in well with reporters. And certainly when it comes to breaking news, and if you have a product that's fitting into today's pandemic world, using that angle is important. And the interview process, when you're doing an interview, whether it's for a newspaper or a blogger or on a podcast or TV, is make sure you mention your product or company name. Don't overdo it every other word, but once in a while. If you've been listening to this webinar since the beginning, you probably noticed that in the past 20 minutes, I've said the name of my company 2 or 3 times. You don't want to overdo it, but you want to mention it so that it's top of mind on the name of that product. So someone's looking for it. I work with my clients with 3 key messages to share with the audience. And when you're doing a telephone interview, you could write down your notes. It's okay. I always say for TV, for webinars, for video casts, practice in the mirror. So many people say, oh, but Andrea, I recorded myself on my cell phone. That's all well and good. But when you practice in a mirror and you look at yourself and make eye contact with yourself, you control your message, you can be smooth, you're not doing the like your nose, and you're able to get the story out. Don't get sidetracked on your personal stories. You all have great stories. Hearing the invention process from so many inventors over the years has been phenomenal. I remember the woman who invented the 1-second needle. Her elderly mother could not thread a needle, and she found a way to have the needle with a break in it so you could thread around the needle instead of through this tiny little hole. And she had a great story, but we worked with her so that the story was as quick as I just told it to you. Short, sweet, you could relate. She wanted to help her elderly mother. She invented a product and made a difference. Keep your personal story shorter so that the topic is your invention. Drive awareness in every interview to your website, a specific retailer, Amazon, because you want to make sure that you're getting a sale out of it without it sounding like a commercial. That's really important. A public relations interview is not act now, but wait, there's more. Buy 1, you'll get 2 free. Let's not do that. Let's talk about why it is editorial content and why it's going to make a difference for the buyer. Let's move on to the next slide.
Andrea, before we go to the next slide, can you hear me okay?
I can, Laura.
Okay, you know, a lot of our inventors, you know, really have never been on television or radio or anything like that. And so all of your points are very well taken. But I know with a lot of our members, you know, they would be very nervous for their first time. I know I was first time on TV, but do you, with your clients that you bring on board with you, do you do a bit of role playing and, you know, that kind of a thing with them to help them kind of narrow that down so they feel like they've got you, you know, guiding them?
100%. One of the things that I always do is I do media training with my clients. I also make sure that we're booking interviews that might be lower hanging fruit, smaller type of interviews, so that I can listen and watch back and we can critique and work through everything. Doing television interviews is nerve-wracking. There's no doubt about it. Those lights are bright, they are hot, and you have a few seconds to get your message across. So before you jump into having a public relations person book you on a television interview, let's start with those smaller interviews with some podcasts, with talking to writers over the phone so that you can fine-tune the message. But what's most important for any inventor, you can't mess it up because it's your product. So you know your product's in your heart. So you know your product so well that you can't mess it up because no one would be able to say, oh, they didn't say the right thing about the product, because you know the product. So I work with my clients because it takes a while to have a comfort level. And I was working with a president of a major, as seen on TV product company years ago. And I remember the first interview was at a TV station in New York on a Sunday morning show, and he was shaking. And then a few weeks later, we had something, and we had something a few weeks later, and a few weeks later. And within about 2-3 years, he said, do you remember that time I was always so scared? And it comes with the experience. But what's really important if you're going to do these interviews is listen to someone who has the experience. Don't decide that you're going to railroad the interview and do what you think is going to be best for your brand. Another story I have, I was working with a president of a major consumer products company out of Tampa. And I had a reporter from Bloomberg actually travel from Boston down to Tampa to watch a commercial shoot and to speak with the CEO of this company about this one product. The CEO had 9 other products in the lineup. And I said, do not discuss those products. Let's focus on this one, because then we'll have potentially 9 other interviews. And he sat down and he proceeded to spill his story about all 9 products or 10 products. And that was it. Everything just went up in smoke because he didn't listen to me. The interview barely mentioned the one product that we were highlighting that was currently available. It was a waste of a national interview because this particular CEO or president decided he knew better. So please listen to an experienced public relations person. We will guide you. We will make sure that you look right, present right. This morning, as a matter of fact, I was watching an interview on the Today Show, and they were interviewing a scientist or a medical professional. It's also important when you're doing an interview that you focus on your appearance. So you'll notice that I occasionally use my hands, but I'm sitting up straight. Find a chair that you can sit up straight. If you need a pillow behind your back, great. Keep your feet flat on the floor, or cross one leg neatly over the other, or cross at the ankles. Keep yourself steady. This particular woman on the Today Show this morning was going back and forth like this the whole interview. And she was wearing these long dangling earrings, and she moved her head like this. Well, I don't know about you. I got so dizzy watching her that I couldn't focus on the topic. So I can't even tell you exactly what she spoke about because she wasn't sitting upright. She was rocking back and forth, shaking her head back and forth. And those are all just as important as the content of your words. So appearance is important, words are important, getting the message across is important. So Laura, I hope that that helps to answer your question to help prepare people for those kind of interviews.
Yeah, that very much does. I know many of our members, are coming forth with their very first product and haven't done this before, and that's very comforting to know that they would have like you, coaching them all along the way. So thank you very much.
Yes, and I find that I oftentimes start with podcasts because then we can listen back together. Obviously I listen first after it appears and I write down my notes, but then I listen again with the inventor, with the client, and we're able to say, okay, that worked, that didn't work, let's do this, let's do that. And I think the biggest challenge when you're doing a video or audio interview, the challenge are those ums, likes, and other buzzwords that people fit in. Remember that it's okay to pause. Dead air for a second or two is not a problem. Get your thought together so that you do come across knowledgeable, because the more that you are comfortable in your topic, the more that is trusted endorsement of your product. So keep those in mind, and practice makes perfect with anything.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the next slide. And I just want to reiterate, in the public relations mix, please engage with media outlets on social media. Meaning, if a media outlet covers your product, make sure that you tag them on your social media when you repost that. So whether it is a blog, a mommy blogger, daddy blogger, general lifestyle blogger, news blogger, a podcaster, tag that. I had a client who was on ABC World News Now about 3 weeks ago with her product. And she in turn tagged ABC, tagged World News Now. I tagged ABC, tagged World News Now. We both got more followers to our pages because of that. So please remember to tag that. And, finally, I say to you, once you have done these things and you have your product, you have a patent or provisional patent, you have inventory, you've got a website, now it's time for public relations. So now it's time for you, the inventor, to be in the news today. If you've got a story, it's time to tell it. I would welcome that opportunity to tell that for you. And I hope we have a chance to work together and speak more. And as I said to Laura earlier, when we were offline, if any of our viewers of this webinar would like to speak to me one-on-one, I am always available to speak with inventors because there's so much to learn in the process. But what's important to know is that we all cannot be experts at everything. I have someone who handles my billing for my company. I'm not an expert at billing. There's someone else who does that. I have a company that I purchase appropriate public relations lists from because I can't possibly maintain every single list of every single press person on the planet. That's their job. So remember, you are an expert at being an inventor. You're an expert at your particular invention and your particular category. Look to other people who have expertise in other areas, and in my case, public relations, because the more that you work with people who have other expertises, the more that you will grow. So I hope that I was able to enlighten the members of the Inventors Association of Arizona and give you more insights into public relations. And Laura has just put up on the screen ways that you can track me down, and feel free to make note of these, and I know Laura will be sharing them with the members, and let me know what you're working on and how I can help you, or what's the right way to go when. But please plan that out, because that's what's going to help sell your products, and that's what's going to help get you in front of those retailers to be able to potentially carry your product. So are there any questions that I can answer for anybody? I'm so thrilled that you joined me in this webinar. It was a lot of fun.
Andrew, we don't have any questions that are written in here, but I have a question for you.
Okay.
And yes, and I think one of the reasons why we don't have questions, this happens, a lot of times when people are just soaking in the information. This is all new to them, and they may not be at that stage yet. A lot of our members are just, working on their prototypes and, getting things down like that. So I want to actually mention to the audience too, that if you're at that initial stage where you're not ready for the PR yet, Andrea does go on to our trusted resources list. So we will always have her contact information, even if it's, 2 years later. Which sometimes it takes that long to get, your product ready, for our PR. But here's one of my questions is, with our members, which, we do have a lot of members, and we do have members that finish their products, but stay with the membership so that they can tap into our resources and get some of the discounts. And so I'm asking you, if a member in good standing would contact you, do you give the Inventors Association of Arizona members a discount?
I would 100% do that. I think that, there's this misconception that public relations is $25,000 a month for a year.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're Nabisco or Procter and Gamble, yes, it is. But for an inventor community, obviously, I'm working with realistic budgets, but I will certainly give a discount on those budgets if it is through the Inventors Association of Arizona. And whereas I normally start with a minimum of a 6-month retainer, if you mention this webinar, I will lower that to a 4-month retainer at a reduced rate, because I think that you need to have a taste of public relations to understand how it can benefit you. But it's also important for an inventor to realize, is the product realistic to a mass audience or a targeted audience? And one story, can I tell an inventor story?
Oh, please.
Yeah. So I've done a lot of these pitch-a-thons, as I've mentioned, over the years. And a woman came in who had invented a brooch that you would put on your winter coat. Of course, you wouldn't understand this in Arizona, but on your winter coat for a woman to hang a purse, and it would stay on your shoulder on your bulky winter coat when you're out and about. And she said to this panel, and we had press in the room, and we had a panel, and Andrea would love this. And I looked at the inventor and I said, I have to be honest, I buy a winter coat once every 8 years. I'm not made of money. If that put a run in the fabric in my winter coat because it pulled down because of my purse, which I don't have a problem wearing a crossbody purse or holding the purse on my shoulder in between my car and wherever I'm going in the winter, I said, I wouldn't want this product to ruin my coat. And she couldn't understand that her product was not going to be viable because she couldn't guarantee that it wouldn't run the fabric in a coat.
Right.
So she hadn't done her homework on that. Now, on the flip side, I did an inventor pitch in Philadelphia where a physical therapist designed a knee brace that would have magnets in it that touched your pressure points to reduce sciatic nerve pain. Okay, within 2 minutes, my client, who was the panel, loved it. Within 6 weeks, they shot a commercial with him. Within 90 days, it was on every store shelf in CVS, Duane Reade, Walgreens, and Target. This inventor did very, very well financially from the deal, and the Be Active brace took off. So he did his homework, he had his research papers, he had product, and therefore we were able to move very, very fast because it was more than a concept. And there are so many people that suffer from sciatic nerve pain that this easy knee brace did the trick. So, you know, there are both ends of the spectrum in a pitch, and I'm always happy to give feedback. I'm not the end all be all. We all, no one could know or have that magic, looking glass to see, okay, will this be the next Snuggie? But we can certainly look and see that what's going to be good for a pet. And if you have a dog or a cat product, most Americans have a dog or a cat. If you have a product for a pig, the number of Americans that own a pig as a pet is going to be a much smaller list of people. So, it's always that catch-22 with a product, and be careful also with the name of your product. You want it to be catchy, but you want to think it through so that people will remember the name too. So it's all part of the public relations mix.
Another question for you, Andrea. Now, and I know that I'm kind of speaking for a lot of people here as I am asking these questions, but let's say we have some members that have pet products, and they're ready to go. They've got their distribution set up, they've got inventory, everything's kind of ready to go. Do you help them connect with let's say PetSmart or, anything like that. Is that part of public relations, is making those
It,
connections?
it is not.
Okay.
I do, though, have connections for pitch panels where there might be executives from those companies who are coming to see that particular panel at the hardware show or the houseware show or the PGA show or some of these other trade shows. But for the most part, I don't have connections with the retailers directly.
Okay, but you know where to tell your clients to go to possibly meet them, where they would be, like hardware show. Yeah,
Exactly. And
you guys
I think
where.
that, and keep in mind that even though trade shows have been canceled or postponed, there are many groups that are doing pitch events instead, obviously of going. I know that the United Inventors Association is holding a virtual pitch event tomorrow, Thursday, May 7th, at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 11 a.m. In Arizona. And it's a panel that includes, I think, someone from QVC and someone from a company that brings pitches to retailers. So look for these pitch events, but fine tune your pitch. And, having been a person who has arranged pitch events throughout the country over many, many years and invited press to come to these pitch events, I've seen where there are times that inventors are not prepared to answer the questions. So I say, do your homework, make sure you know what the potential audience size is, know who the competitors are. Has your product been invented before? And have you made a better one? And this is all a simple Google search. And the same way I say, look for your competitors, and if they're in the press, you should be in the press. Look for your competitors as you're inventing your product to make sure that it wasn't a product that was out 10 years ago or something like that. So I think there are so many opportunities, but look at these trade shows that have been postponed or canceled and see what they're doing differently, because whereas you may not have been able to afford a booth, for example, at one of these shows, you might be now able to get into the show virtually.
Ooh,
for
that's
free.
a good
And attend these shows, attend lectures. I'm going to a small business conference 2 days in June from my computer. And I wouldn't have been able to afford to go to the conference. It was in Florida, and to get in was hundreds and hundreds of dollars, to fly, stay in a hotel, eat. It would have been $1,000 for 2 days. And now I'm going virtually for free.
Perfect.
This is Jonna, sorry to jump in, but we did just get a few questions in. Do you want me to read them, or Laura,
Yes,
do you want to read them out?
I can't see them for some reason. So yeah, Jonna, if you will.
Okay. Yeah, we've got 4 questions right now. The first one, I think you addressed part of it. Did you mention tagging the media in your post? Which I think you talked about in one of your slides, but then she asked, do I need their permission to tag them?
No, on social media, if the article or review is posted, you don't need their permission to tag them. The only media outlet that does not allow you to reproduce any articles anywhere is Consumer Reports. And I've had many clients that I've been able to get featured in Consumer Reports. However, they would never take the product directly from the client. They would have to order it or go buy it themselves for their testing. So if you ever get a review from Consumer Reports, that's a fabulous thing for you, but you can't repost it. But everything else you can repost. So don't worry about it, and also tag the reporter if you can. So they want more people to follow them. So, but again, don't start hounding these reporters for other stories. If they do one story, let your PR person be in touch with them when the time is right for the next product or the next story. But reporters don't like people to, contact them over and over and over again.
Okay. And then the next one is from Alex. He said, I use a podcast link from a podcast for my introduction on LinkedIn. The podcast was an interview on patents, and he writes patents as a business. Is this a good idea? So I think basically, is it a good idea to use a podcast link for his introduction? That's, I think, what he's asking.
It's an interesting question. I think that certainly with podcasts, it gives you an opportunity to delve deeper into your topic, which is why I love doing podcast interviews and arranging them for my clients. So for your LinkedIn introduction, that's great. But I think the other thing that's important on LinkedIn is that you might have an image or a link to that clip and use some words, because not everyone wants to listen to your introduction on LinkedIn. They might want to read words and see images. So do both. And LinkedIn certainly has its benefits for giving that extra boost of awareness.
Awesome. And then we have, I invented a fitness product and currently have 2 patents on it. I have 3D printed copies with work as well as a retail version. I am working with a representative with SCORE who is helping me to find potential licensees. I have not considered public relations as an aspect I should use. What's the best way to dip my toe in the PR pond, especially in the current social situation?
Well, I have to tell you, fitness, especially if it's a home fitness product, they are huge right now because of the fact that we're all at home. So it's a great story. If there is inventory of your product versus a 3D printed version, printer version, if you already have the product or you're manufacturing the product, then the time to dip your toe in public relations is today, because of the fact that there are more and more stories opening up, more and more opportunities in the press, on TV, etc., for fitness items, because now, depending on where in the country you live, as I said, I'm in the Northeast. We are on lockdown and things are not opening up. Our county parks opened up a bit for bicycles and runners, but for the most part, we do all have to social distance. We have to wear masks when we're on these bicycle paths. So if there's a fitness product that can be used at your home, if the time is now to get that story out. So I do welcome the opportunity to speak with you and learn more about your product and when you will have product out there. There are people doing product reviews, looking for interviews of inventors that have products. So fitness is hot right now.
Okay, and he did say this is a home use product.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's funny because I talk to people about fitness, and I'm one of those people. I may not be a skinny mini, but I wake up early every morning to use my exercise bicycle or my treadmill, and I have some weights and I have a mat, and I'll do my exercises at home because I can't go to the gym, obviously, and then I end my day around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and my husband and I go out walking when it's nice weather. And it feels good to get some kind of exercise. And then I talk to other people who say, oh, I did some laps around the living room. And I'm like, that's not exercise. So to have a piece of equipment is a wonderful thing in today's world. And also it makes a great gift. So whether it's Father's Day or birthday or holiday, fitness items make a great gift because no one's going anywhere.
Absolutely. And then we have one more. If anyone else has questions, please add them to the chat as well. But someone asked, do you help create and distribute press releases?
The answer is yes. And then here's the but. Press releases don't get pickup. Press pitches get pickup. It's very interesting because so many people think that PR wire services are the end all be all. And by spending money to put a press release over a wire service means that everybody's writing about your product. It's an antiquated view. I write a press release so that I can write a press pitch. So I write that material. I write biographies so that I have a bio on the inventor. I need product images. The only things I need to start a PR campaign, I need product images, overview of the product, including website where it's available and suggested retail price, product images, lifestyle images, and that's all I need to start a public relations campaign. So it's funny because some PR firms will say, oh, I ramp up. It takes 6 weeks for me to ramp up. It takes me an hour or two to ramp up. So when someone's working with Andrea Pass Public Relations, I'm already spreading the word within the first 2 hours of the campaign because I'm down and dirty and let's get it done. So yes, I write press releases, but it's unless you're looking for content for a blog, which I don't write blog content, but I work with people who do write blog content.
All right, awesome. That's all of the questions we have right now. So I will pass it back over to you guys.
Okay, thank you, Jonna. I'm not sure why I never saw any in chat or questions, but this is our first time through, so it's a learning experience for us too. I want to, as we wrap up tonight, number one, thank Andrea, for taking her time, staying up really late tonight in order, to share her knowledge with us. And I learned a lot. Andrea, thank you very much. And I want to thank, of course, CEI, who's hosting this and helping us through this. Now, if anybody misplaces or forgets Andrea's contact information, again, you can contact me. Our website is azinventors.org. I'm going to tell you we're in the process of revamping the website. And I've been working for weeks on this. So if you look at it tonight and then you look at it next week, it may look totally different, but that's still us. Okay, so Andrea, thank you. You have been so gracious in helping us through our first webinar. So thank you very much. All of you that are members, we are going to have our closed door think tank meeting. So we will see you in 2 weeks. I'll be sending out information on that. And anybody else with any other questions, please send them to me, exdir@azinventors.org, and I can pass those on to Andrea also. So that will be a wrap for tonight. Thank you all. And that's it. We'll see you again next month. Take care.